like a Shelby Cobra with a machine gun didn't really happen in like actual medieval Europe, right? But it's a video game, so of course you're going to have some differences.
Talent. Park Place writing, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed.
Ubisoft, I saw this the other day. This is pretty funny. They are having a really bad time with the new Assassin's Creed and Star Wars Outlaws. It's been real bad.
So here's a funny one. Assassin's Creed Shadows boss claims DEI is killing game. Not only doubles down on it, but also attacks critics. Not only doubles down on it, writing, but also attacks critics. Not only doubles down on it, writing, but also attacks critics. Not only doubles down on it, writing, but also attacks critics. Not only doubles down on it, writing, but also attacks critics. Sis Coty. Right when I finally learned how to pronounce Yves Guillemot, they give me a whole new one to get wrong.
Yeah.
Anyone wanted to tell me the pronunciation for this, I'd appreciate it. Admitted that the company's injection of DEI into Assassin's Creed Shadows is harming the game's potential, but declared that he plans to double down on it and even attack his critics. So yeah, just a little more info. That's this guy, programmer and level designer at Ubisoft Quebec, currently serving as the vice president executive producer for the entire Assassin's Creed franchise. As reported by Eurogamer, that guy made an appearance at a BAFTA event where he shared that discussions of Ubisoft's DEI policies, quote, can influence how our games are perceived, but rather than shy away from those conversations, we should see them as an opportunity, unquote. From there, he attempted to gaslight people in attendance by stating, quote, Assassin's Creed has always been about exploring the full spectrum of human history.
Of course.
By its very nature, that history is diverse. Staying true to history means embracing the richness of human perspectives without compromise. For example, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we highlight figures both fictional, like Naui, a Japanese woman warrior, and historical, like Yasuke, the African-born samurai. While the inclusion of a black samurai in feudal Japan has sparked questions and even controversy, Naui, as a fictional character, has also faced scrutiny for her gender. But just as Yasuke's presence in Japanese history is fact, so too are the stories of women who...
I don't know about that. I feel like the person that they quoted or they said was the person that they were like referring to as like, yeah, this is our reference. Wasn't that guy outed as a total fraud? Like, there's one source, and the source was using itself as a source secondarily on Wikipedia? Yeah, the guy was a total fucking fraud. What are we talking about?
Societal expectations, and took up arms in times of conflict. So while both Naui and Yasuke's stories are works of historical fiction, they reflect the collision of different worlds, cultures, and roles.
Wait. But as Yasuke's presence in Japanese history is fact, so while both Yasuke's stories are works of historical fiction... I mean, to be fair, there is a difference in those two sentences, but it's a little bit confusing.
Their inclusion is precisely the kind of narrative that Assassin's Creed seeks to tell, one that reflects the complexity and intercorrectness of our shared history.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen anyone take an issue with Naui. All the critiques that I've seen of AC Shadows regarding the characters is specifically directed at Yasuke, and that's because of the whole historical inaccuracies thing. In my opinion, this statement seems like the guy's trying to muddy the waters, so to speak. Like, he's not acknowledging the issues that people have with Yasuke and the historical inaccuracies and all that.
This is always what happens, is that this is one of the best ways to address criticism, is to completely muddy the waters and totally misrepresent what's actually happening. It's a really, really great strategy. And this is what happens constantly. It's deflect, yeah. A game of this? This is Risk of Rain 7.
Stuff. Instead, he's trying to act like people's issue with Yasuke is simply that they don't want diversity in games. And again, they use this word very disingenuously, in my opinion. Then also trying to apply the same thing to Naui, and then rolling both those arguments together into one disingenuous bad faith pie. It's always been diverse,
I agree.
He said, and this isn't new ground for the franchise. From Altair to Aveline, we've consistently introduced protagonists from diverse racial, ethnics, and gender identities. History is inherently diverse, and so is Assassin's Creed and the stories we tell. So to be clear...
I don't know, I mean, like, about history being inherently diverse, I feel like... I bet if you probably went back 500 years, I would say a lot of cultures were probably very, like one race of people. I probably would have assumed that. I mean, I'm sure there's, like, going to be exceptions. Of course, there's always exceptions. But I feel like in a lot of cases that, yeah, very, like, a monoculture, yeah, homogenous cultures, yeah, exactly, yeah, what do you mean? Because, I mean, the reason why is just simply because of travel. Like, the reason why now, like, it's easier to have diversity is because it's easier for a person who like was from Africa to come over to California. Whereas like 500 years ago, it wasn't as easy. It's easy for somebody from China to go to America. Back then, it probably wasn't as easy. It's just like common sense.
Our commitment to inclusivity is grounded in historical authenticity and respect for diverse perspectives, not driven by modern agendas. That's rich coming from the people who will literally butcher history specifically to try and shoehorn in Yasuke as the character that they want, which is also insulting to Yasuke, by the way. They're basically saying like what we factually know about him is not good enough. They gotta write their headcanon and try to present it as fact. Next, he attacked critiques of Ubisoft's diversity and inclusion policies, which he is clearly an advocate for, saying, alongside these deep-rooted franchise values is our commitment to recognize and listen to legitimate criticism as an essential part of the creative process.
I think that people that are, like Ubisoft had basically what Blizzard had happen to them. They had it happen a few years before Blizzard had it happen, and it kind of flew under the radar because it wasn't as big as Blizzard's situation. But a lot of the Ubisoft's policies here are a reaction to them basically almost like losing their company because of how bad employees were treated there. So like, let's not get up on a soapbox and talk about, oh, how much you care about this stuff if this stuff only managed to happen right after you went through like a fucking Rapture level lawsuit.
Our community helps us grow, evolve, and deliver better games. Today we all, however, face the added challenge of distinguishing between genuine feedback and attacks driven by intolerance. So these people are
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's genuine feedback or an attack driven by intolerance. If it results in you losing a sale, the outcome is the same. And this is what a lot of people don't understand, is that they have they put like a very strong, like what's the word for this? Like a moral benchmark on like what their opinions are, and they say because we have these good opinions, like everybody needs to like see the world the same way that we do. But the truth is that there's like a righteousness to it, but like there isn't actually a power ranking in the real world. There's not. Yeah, rewriting history is intolerant. Well, it's more than that. It's that it doesn't, like if there's a lot of people, for example, like if you're making a game and you want to sell it in the Middle East and it's in one of the countries that's like very, very anti-LGBT, and your game has that in it, you're going to have a lot of people that aren't going to like that game. And you can call them all bigots, you can call them all bad or whatever you want, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you're not going to sell the game. That's all there is to it.
Much creeps. They just lie about this stuff and openly gaslight. They pretend like they care about all these things, but for them it's all about ESG score and money. The current climate is tough on our creative teams. They face lies, half-truths, and personal attacks online. When the work they pour their hearts into is twisted into a symbol of division, it's not just disheartening, it can be devastating.
I'm sure, here's the thing, is that I'm sure it sucks if you're like working at one of these companies and you have a bunch of people hating on you and criticizing you and shitting on you. Like, I can easily be like, yeah, bro, like, I can totally get, this must really suck. Absolutely. It's the same as like anytime, like a lot of you guys, like, I can put myself in the shoes of somebody like Hassan, right? Or people can probably look and like be like, yeah, when it happens to me, or like Ethan Klein or Destiny or somebody else that gets a lot of hate like Tectone. Like you can put yourself in that person's shoes and be like, yeah, this probably really sucks that a lot of people are saying this about you. For sure it sucks. But like that's just the way it is. And if you're in the kitchen, if you're cooking, if you're in the arena, you're fighting, you're gonna have people that are gonna complain. And that's what's gonna happen. If you don't like it, get out of the fucking kitchen. That's the way I see it.
I know that this man is ready to get his soy latte after this speech. What keeps me going is the resilience born out of conviction that I see in our teams every day. I'm especially proud of the Shadows team for staying true to their creative vision and the core tenets of Assassin's Creed. By choosing Naui and Yasuke as protagonists, we are expanding the narrative landscape, offering new points of view that challenge established norms found in many works of fiction, while staying true to the history that shaped
I mean, like, I don't think that people have a problem with challenging established norms, but I don't think that challenging established norms is a good thing, and it's not a bad thing. It really depends on what the norm is that you're challenging. who asked for that challenge. Yeah, exactly. You're challenging history. Yeah, it's a very, very weird outlook on things. All those people are going to have no jobs. Yeah. There's a good chance that's going to happen.
At the end of the day, Assassin's Creed is not just a franchise. It's a platform for entertainment, dialogue, discovery, and understanding. Our commitment isn't just about reflecting on the past. It's about ensuring that the stories we tell continue to unite, inspire, and
I actually do wish that they would focus a little bit more on the historical context of things, because, like, maybe this was just me growing up, but my mom was really positive about me playing Age of Empires 2 because it had real history in it, and I felt like that was really cool. And growing up, like, I look back on that and I think, wow, that was actually really badass. So I do hope that they play more of a focus on actually trying to make things that were historical be accurate. I'm not saying one-to-one, right? The same as, like, I mean, you know, as far as I know, like, a Shelby Cobra with a machine gun didn't really happen in like actual medieval Europe, right? But you know, it's a video game, so of course you're going to have some differences.
Challenge players, regardless of their background, and we'll continue to stand by these values because they're central to the heart of the franchise, and I believe to the future of storytelling itself. Ultimately, we believe that the diversity and
these values are absolutely not. They are not central to the future of storytelling. They're not. These are a modern invention that people have convinced themselves are important. No, this is not. You don't need this in storytelling.
The richness of the human experience is what helps Assassin's Creed resonate with players across the globe, and we're committed to standing firm on that foundation. I find it hilarious that he talks about people all across the globe, when all across the globe, people refer to Ubisoft as Ubisoft, and they've especially managed to get, like, the entire country of Japan to absolutely hate them. He then doubled down on this idea that Assassin's Creed
I don't think the entire country of Japan hates them, but I could see a lot of... I don't know, like, what actual Japanese people think about this, because in a lot of cases, the people that were, like, typing in Japanese were just Americans that Google translated what they said into Japanese. So, like, it's hard really for me to say, but I could see how at least some of them probably don't like it. I mean, it's easy to assume, especially with, like, some of the, like, really, just kind of ignorant cultural appropriation. Like, for example, like selling that, like, what was the half thing that was, like, destroyed by the nuclear bomb? Like, what was it called again? It's like a Japanese word. I don't remember exactly what it was. Torigate, yeah. The like one, like the one leg Torigate. Like, selling that, like, it's just super culturally insensitive, super cultural appropriation, like, unironically, right? And, like, I could see Japanese people being offended by that, yeah. You really watch videos of Japanese people reacting to this? Yeah, but a sample size of 2 isn't really what I would determine what a country thinks on, right? Like, yeah, it's not really a great way of looking at it.
It's not a game, but something else altogether. Gosh, these people are lame as heck. Assassin's Creed is more than... He really says it. Oh my gosh, bro. Assassin's Creed is more than just a game. Yeah. It can be a platform for meaningful exploration and reflection wrapped in the excitement of unforgettable gameplay. And it's that fusion of creativity, diversity, immersion, and fun that continues to define the franchise and connect it with players around the globe. I might actually die of cringe before I finish this article. It might really happen, but I'll try. Next, he paints himself in Ubisoft as... Oh yeah, I'm gonna die. It's
okay,
over.
Here we go.
He paints himself and Ubisoft as victims. Yeah, this massive corporation, they're just a bunch of victims to these individual gamers. Those gamers are so terrifying. We gotta help the corpos.
I think that any time that you demonize your fan base and you demonize people who are giving you criticism, a lot of times you end up doing yourself a disservice and pushing people even farther away. And I think when you're building a product and you're trying to sell that product, every single person's feedback is important, even if you don't agree with it. So, like, there's always going to be a lot of people that aren't going to like what you're doing creatively. Like, for example, Fight Club, whenever it first was premiered, people booed the movie. There's always going to be people that don't like things that are perceived as good, and vice versa. There's people that thought Elden Ring was bad. That doesn't really mean that, like, you should focus on them and make them the core of what you're talking about.
We have that Sweet Baby Ink stuff that I just talked about yesterday. where they also were playing victim and were like trying to beg corporations and like government and institutions to protect them from individual gamers. I really don't know how anyone can live their lives like this. I say lame all the time with these people. I mean, it's the perfect word in my opinion. These are like the lamest people ever. How are they happy with themselves? How do they accept this as like the lives that they really live? Bunch of corpos acting like they're the biggest victims of all time. These people have so much.
I think that like to them it is like this is gonna maybe be like kind of something that people might have trouble like accepting, but as somebody who's been the target of a lot of online hate and I've seen a lot of other people deal with it, I can easily see how a person, especially like, you know, for example, like if you're a streamer, like you're kind of signing up for that, right? But like if you're working on making a video game, maybe you're not necessarily doing that. Like this never even really occurred to you. It's like some like tertiary effect that's like way downstream of like what your actual job is. So I can easily see how like it's going to fucking bother you a lot to have this happen as like a random person that's like working in, you know, a company, right? Definitely I can see how that happens. It's easy to empathize with a person like that, even though it's like, I'm not even saying they're right. I'm just saying I can understand why you're upset. I think that's very fair to do.
Power and money backing them. The stories we tell, the characters we create, the game worlds we build are instrumentalized by those
I think so
who
too.
seek to silence creativity, to stoke fear, and incite hatred.
The game world is influenced too by those who seek to silence creativity. Wait, what?
I believe we are facing what CNN anchor Fareed Zakaria calls an age of revolution, a time when the real conflict is not between the left and the right, but between societies that close themselves off and those that open themselves up to the world. Throughout history, it's the open societies that have always eventually prevailed. While there may be setbacks over the years or even decades, it is openness that has continually pushed humanity forward. Yeah,
I think this is the problem, is that these people are closed-minded and they think that they're the ones that are being open-minded. You don't need to be so open-minded that your brain falls out. That's the problem. There's nothing wrong with being open-minded. I think that's good. And I think this person they're correct, by the way. Like, it is true that cultures and societies that have been more forward-thinking, and like this is like you have to look at it abstractly and not look at it through the lens of like racial diversity. Like you look at it through the lens of like religious, religious rights, or you look at it through the lens of especially scientific regulation. Like every society that was like anti-science in history was seen as being bad. And they basically don't exist anymore, or they've changed. So it's extremely true. But it's just being interpreted in a way that's completely one-dimensional.
Yeah, man. Like, Ubisoft will do anything.
That's another way to say it.
Game nowadays. This echoes.
I love how like this is the way it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Selfless bravery of our Assassin's Creed protagonists. They fought for freedom, knowledge, and the right to chart their own paths, just as we,
echoes of selfless bravery,
as creators, fight to tell stories that matter in a world that grows increasingly divided.
And this is the problem, is that, like, you know, this person thinks that they're like some kind of a revolutionary whenever they're saying something like this. I don't think that you're really doing anybody any favors by doing this, and I think that the biggest problem, and I think that what a lot of people have issue with, is when people try to do something bad, and then they want a pat on the back for it, and they want to be seen as being virtuous for doing the bad thing. I think that's what's really happening here, and that's why it's so frustrating and annoying, is that a lot of people can kind of see how this actually creates a lot more division, but like it's like these self-righteous virtue signaling that I think alienates way more people than it brings over. Because like what they were saying before about how societies and cultures that were open to change were historically seen as the good societies that advanced. This is factually true. And it's been factually true for 1,000 years. Why did they call it the Dark Ages? You know? Pretty fucking easy to say. And so, like, I think that it's true, but like I don't think these people realize that they're actually being the agents of being reductive to that goal and not supportive towards it. I think their actions, like they're trying to be supportive, but they're actually not trying to be supportive. They're trying to sell a product and look like they're the good guys, and being supportive is a pleasant secondary effect, but it's certainly not the goal. They mainly care about making money and virtue signaling. And doing something good is, maybe a serendipitous outcome, but it's certainly not the goal.
Divided. As the authors of How Democracies Die so powerfully stated, democracies crumble when good people decide to stay silent. The same is true, I think, of our creative freedom. We allow fear to stifle our voices. We self-censor in the face of threats. We hand over our power, piece by piece, until freedom and creativity both wither away.
I think that's true. And the problem is that, you're right, but here's the issue. When they release this game, and maybe this game will sell well, it's hard to say. There's been a lot of noise around the game, so I could see it probably selling well anyway. But if they release this game and then a lot of people don't buy the game, like what seems to be the case with Dragon Age, just based off of Steam numbers, etc., but of course it's always a guess. It doesn't really matter how democracies die, self-censoring in the face of threats, handing over power. All of these self-aggrandizement notions immediately fall by the wayside when you don't have money to pay payroll. And then you have to cut people and you have to close the studio. Like what happened with Concord. That's the big issue. I might be wrong, but I think the biggest issue is the fact that they call names and try to guilt trip anyone who doesn't want to buy their product. Yeah, you're not a freedom fighter because you're trying to capitalize on World War II, what do you call it? Indications of the nuclear bomb and sell products based off of it. You're not handing over power. You're not promoting democracy by doing that. You're just trying to use Japanese culture as a way to make money. And that's fine. You want to do that, okay, go ahead and do that. But don't expect everybody to roll out the red carpet and tell you that you're a good person for it. I think that's what's really weird.
Not let that happen. It's time for us as creators to stand firm on our commitment to our values by telling stories that inspire, that challenge, and help people connect. Our silence cannot become complicit.
This silence cannot become complicit. Again. There's no, you want to hear a studio that's really silent right now? Firewalk Studios. The people that made Concord. The entire thing got shut down. So if you want to stand by your values, listen, if you want to ride your ship to the bottom of the ocean, go ahead and do it. But don't, whenever you get there, blame somebody else. There's an issue with creating unique art, but they're selling it to us? Yeah, exactly. They can do whatever they want, but they shouldn't expect, you have the right to make whatever you want. You don't have the right to make everybody else accept it.
This dude is some rich corpo, and he's acting like he's oppressed.
Yeah,
how extremely obnoxious.
He's a revolutionary.
He then issued his closing statement saying,
okay, here we go.
To our players, the ones who have stood by us, supported us, and celebrated our work over the years with enthusiasm and constructive feedback, this stance is for you. You are the heart of our journey. We create for you, and your support fuels our creativity and strengthens our resolve to keep pushing boundaries, to tell stories that matter. This journey is yours as much as it is ours, and I thank you for being with us every step of the way. I'm an optimist and a dreamer. I believe that the answer to hate is to continue creating experiences that celebrate the richness of our world and capture the magic of our collective imagination. Because in the end, creativity is stronger than fear. And together, we are creating the future of entertainment, he concluded. I am so...
This is the future of entertainment. Man. Bro, this guy... Oh my god. Wow. I hope not? Yeah, that's crazy. The sad future? I don't know what to say.
Glad that's over. I don't need to read any more quotes from this guy. Just reading 10 minutes of his nonsense was enough for me.
Bro, this guy thinks he's one of the, this is the kind of person that thinks the French Revolutions was against all the rich people, when in fact the French Revolution was just the nobility killing the, the aristocrats and oligarchs killing the royalty. It was just basically meet the new boss, same as the old boss. but like they have no actual like historical like knowledge of this, and so they only see it through like this really weird like contrived modern lens that's completely devoid of any historical context, and like they think that they're like, yeah, this is what I do. Like, no, it's not. Stop it. Napoleon took over? Yeah. They sell a product and focus on social messaging instead of product quality? Yeah. And I mean, like, if you want to make a product that's focused on social messaging, that's totally fine. But I think that the issue that a lot of people have is that they don't want to be demonized and talked down to when they don't want to pursue or like buy a product and then be told that they're like a bad person for it. I think it's mainly like the emotional blackmail that a lot of it kind of creates and it precipitates. And I think that that's really what a lot of people don't like more than anything else. Metaphor to it? Well, there's a lot of games that, see, the games that cover and like go over complex like social issues, they don't need to talk about how good they are for doing it. They just do it. Like Kojima didn't have to go on like a rant about how important it was for him to say, you know, what he said in Metal Gear Solid and like defend himself and everything. He just put it out there. And like also like we've been using Metaphor a lot as an example because it's been, you know, a really popular recent game. But there's a lot of other games that do this as well. Like, you want to know one of the really good examples that like a lot of people, like a lot of us probably didn't remember because we were like probably in high school, maybe like college when it happened. But like Gears of War really covered a lot of topics like this. And it was really, really good. I loved it. It was amazing. And you had things like, obviously, you know, Metal Gear Solid is a great example of it. And then you have other games like Final Fantasy XIV, and they cover all kinds of complex, like political and social issues all the time. And the idea that this is some sort of like groundbreaking thing that you've chosen to do this thing that nobody else has done, which is talk about a social issue in a video game. No, the reason why you're getting hate isn't because you're talking about a social issue. It's because you're doing it in a way that's patronizing and it's not enjoyable and people don't like it. It's just, I really wish more people would see it that way. They did it wrong. Yeah, look at Metal Gear Solid Revengeance. Remember that? Like, oh, or Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Like, yeah, I think that's a little bit political, right? And so, I mean, you basically have, I mean, Sundowner, look, it's Dick Cheney. Everybody knows this. Like, you just fucking look at him. It's Dick fucking Cheney. Like, and you look at Senator Armstrong, that's a lot like, you know, Richard Nixon. You know, like, what are we talking about? Yeah, Deus Ex? Yeah, exactly. And so the whole idea that this is some kind of, like, forbidden thing and that they're, like, fighting against, like, some, like, they're shadowboxing this, like, cabal of, like, racists and homophobes and, like, people that are reductive to society, like, this is total moral masturbation. It's not real. It's not happening. It never was happening. People just don't like how you're doing it. They don't like, it's not that they don't like what you're doing, they don't like how you're doing it. My sources that I made it the fuck up, yeah, there you go. Might have touch? No, it's the customers who are wrong. Yeah, there's a lot of companies that thought that. We don't really remember their names anymore because they're not companies, but, you know, back in the day there were.
Can't imagine actually being that dude and thinking like this all the time. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me know what you think about his statement regarding Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft and all that. And thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking or subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.
What is a parody?
Oh no. Oh no.
According to the dictionary,
Oh, I need to watch this fucking video. I haven't seen it yet, but apparently somebody actually played all the way through Dustborn.
So here,
and I just haven't had the I haven't had the willpower to watch the entire thing. Let me go ahead and link you the video. I saw this Ubisoft thing, but I didn't really know what to expect out of it. Oh my god, it's just as cringe and annoying as I would have ever imagined. It's just, it's more cringe than I would have imagined. I didn't think that this person would go out on a soapbox and act like they were a revolutionary by making a video game that culturally appropriated, like, you know, like Japanese cultural icons from, like, a mass killing. Like, I didn't expect them to do, I didn't expect them to reveal that high of a power level of delusion. Always lecturing? Yeah, always lecturing. It's crazy. As a French Canadian, I'm truly sorry, man. Yeah, you need to be. I'm gonna be real. Like, there's, you know what? I don't know what the fuck they're doing up there. Yeah, what is it? XQC? Hey. You know, it's a game about a stage in history that involved 99% Japanese men. Yeah, I guess so, right? And it's not delusion, it's evil. I don't think it's evil, right? It's just that I don't really agree with it. I think it's bad. I don't even think that these people are evil. I just think that they're dumb and self-absorbed. I really don't think they're like bad people. I don't think that they're like evil. I don't think they're trying to like destroy the world. I just think that all they're doing is they're trying to take advantage of a type of like thinking and just go and, you know, put themselves out there and look like they're a good person. That's basically about it. Willfully ignorant? Yeah, exactly. Let the release of the game and see what it's like. They already had the courage to postpone the release. They've released amazing games in the past. People are coping because of 2 bad releases. Is it only been 2 bad releases? I feel like, I'm gonna be real, I feel like it's been way more than 2 bad releases. It's been a lot.
Itu tapi memang
I'm sitting down for a different kind of video today,
Uh-oh.
where we're going in raw.
Uh-oh. Oh.
It's just going to be me talking to you because I'm really frustrated about where we are in gaming and particularly gaming discourse. And
Yep.
I'm frustrated at how difficult it's become to just talk about video games. Something that I'm really
Yeah, I think that's true. It's become increasingly more difficult to do that because people have so much of an agenda behind what games are doing. Like Dragon Age the Veilguard is a great example. Like, people want the game to fail or succeed for reasons that have nothing to do with the game. And all of that noise is completely overshadowing any genuine conversation about whether the game is good or not.
passionate about, and something that I know a lot of you are really passionate about, and I enjoy talking about my passion, and I'm sure most of you do too. And there's a lot of bullshit that's happening with video games right now. There's a lot of activists getting into the industry.
True.
And I think the reason for that is because the industry is it's so popular, and with that popularity comes attention, and with that attention comes power and opportunity for propaganda and to
Yeah, I think
spread
that's
your
true.
message and all this other bullshit. You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, and I know what I'm talking about. And so you've seen a lot of people, a lot of us, stand up and call it out. Stand up and say, hey, like, why are you shoving this, like, social activism? Why are you shoving your personal politics? Why are you shoving your morality and your censorship into, like, my video games? Like, this is
Very good question. Extremely good question.
this is what I do to get away from the world. I play video
Yeah.
games to get away from stress. And so when you see
I think that's a really big component too. Like, what he's saying is that a lot of people play video games for escapism, and when video games turn into being a way that people get to express like their worldview like that, I think that the escapism is lost and it ends up hurting the game.
in your game where you're trying, it's escapism. And when you escape to the video game just to have somebody say, hey, how do you feel about pronouns?
Yeah.
Are you a bigot? When you have that kind of rhetoric and that kind of messaging, and when you have writers and characters in the game that are clearly propped up on soapboxes, it ruins the immersion. It ruins
It does. I'm going to be honest. He's right about everything that he's saying. And I think that he's saying it from the perspective of a person who's like just an average Joe. You know, this is like, I think, what a lot of average guys think.
Escapism. It takes you right out of the video game, and it
Yep.
sets you down right into like some Twitter brain rot discourse.
Of course.
That I think people are getting sick of. I think people are.
People fundamentally don't like being told what to do. They don't like being ordered around. And they don't like having things dictated to them. And I think that at the end of the day, a lot of the people that try to push stuff like this are very bossy, they're very pushy, and they're extremely aggressive with how they want to communicate, and they tell people to act. And I think that if you just extrapolate it to like a very basic level where people don't want to be told what to do and what to think by a video game, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Getting sick of it, and I know that I am. And it was one thing years ago when I saw these kind of interactions and this kind of discourse around video games, and it was only online.
Yeah.
It was only on like Facebook, or it
was
was
like 3
only
people
on
posting.
Twitter back in the day. But you didn't see it in real life. Like you You just saw it on the internet and you were like, what's wrong with these people? You know? But now it's gotten to the point where like it's in real life. Like half the time when I go to the GameStop in my town and I'm looking at games, if Assassin's Creed Shadows comes up, or the new Ghost of Tsushima having a female protagonist, like when this stuff comes up, or like we discuss these games like in a general way, if it comes up for any reason, now I always find myself in a situation where I'm having to discuss these topics with a person face to face, or it's weaving its way into real conversations where I don't really want it. Like, I'll be honest.
I think the reason why that happens is because nowadays there's so much of an emphasis being put on trying to get people to talk about these issues and putting them in your face. Like, and this is a big issue that I think a lot of people that are like social activists have, is that they think that the way that they can attract attention and favor to their cause is by being so obnoxious and aggressive about it that everybody has to take them seriously and listen to them and like pay attention to them. And I think a good example of that is like the Just Stop Oil stuff, where it's like people that are throwing like cans of food. Like, I remember there was like some Spanish like TV show, and it's a guy that just walks up to two of the people that like, you know, were doing that and just shoots them in the head and kills them. And all of the comments were spamming based, right? Everybody was like, yeah, thank God, you know, please do this in real life, right? Which is like clearly, I mean, not what you should do, but I think that it goes to show that people are just fed up with having people that want to take every single like platform and every single place that exists and turn it into a soapbox for their personal issue. And I think that that's what's really happened, is that these people have put themselves into these positions and they've changed the way that different media is portrayed, and then they want it to be in your face. They want it to be something that you have to directly interface with, because they think in doing so they're, I don't know, helping and making the problem better. They don't want to debate these issues. They want to talk down to us. If we push back, then they immediately start the "you're a bigot" rhetoric. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also about like, they don't want to give you a place to breathe and relax, because they think that their issues are so important that you have to always be thinking about them.
With you, like, I don't mind it, but
and this happens with politics too. Like, anybody in the US knows that nowadays, especially with like people, like, there's so much of an emphasis being put on this. Just change DEI and woke stuff for anything radical in messaging? Yeah, well, I think it's true. It's not even really about anything specific. It's just about radical forced messaging that isn't reflective of what the customer wants.
I grew up with this mentality that, like, when you go to the bar, or when you go out, you know, just in public in general, you leave your politics at home. There's no...
I actually disagree with that. I don't think that there's a problem to have conversations about politics with people in public and people that you meet. I think that actually not being able to do that, and the fact that people can treat it like a taboo subject, is a bad thing. I like the idea that you can go and just say, you know what, like, what do you think about this? And just have like an honest, genuine like conversation about it. And I think the real problem isn't the fact that that's happening. It's the fact that people lack the emotional maturity to deal with a dissenting or a disagreeing person without completely losing all their marbles and acting like this person is like everything wrong with the world. Like, you can't have civil discourse when it's like, basically, it's like, oh, well, do you want to support, you know, like making women, like forcing them to die by having babies, or do you support genocide, or do you support, you know, like rapists or pedophiles? Like, it's just, the language is so emotionally elevated that, and it's because it's being dictated by people that are mentally ill, right? It's like, basically, on the internet, there is like a huge contingency of people that are completely mentally ill, that are trying to create the rules for social engagement, that have totally fucked up discourse everywhere. Because I don't think it's a problem to talk about politics with a person in public. I don't think it's a big deal at all. You just have a conversation, listen to what they're saying, they can listen to what you're saying, you can disagree or agree, and that's it. It's not that big of a deal. But for other people, they don't see it that way. And the reason why, it's because like they believe so strongly in these issues. It's that this issue means everything to them, and the reason why they're on the internet is because they've alienated everybody else in their real life by their intense fixation on this issue in a lot of cases.
Good
That's why they're on
gonna
the internet
come,
to begin with.
from dragging your politics and your activism or whatever into a social setting with a bunch of people that are really just trying to chill out. You know, it I think like pollutes the sense of community that you feel in public with people when that kind of shit gets brought in. So I grew up with that mentality that you just, you know, you check that shit at the door and then you just enjoy your time with other people.
I think that it's fine to talk about it, but the problem is that when people think that other people have to have the same opinions that they do, and they get emotionally attached to that, that's when it becomes extremely toxic.
Seeing that line being erased, it feels like more and more in real life.
It's being completely erased, and it's being done on purpose. You see it all the time where people say things like everything is political now, everything is political. Everything is clearly not political. And like using different, using like some sort of, like, I don't know, like some sort of media as like a soapbox for your like fringe political issue. Like, this isn't normal. This isn't normal. People don't like to deal with this. If you're a Nazi supporter, you shouldn't be given a space to exist. Well, there's a lot of countries that agree with you for that. But in America, you can be a Nazi supporter and you can live and exist. That's freedom of speech. It's the First Amendment of the Constitution. So everybody can be stupid, and that's it. Like, just because, and this is like a Nazi, like, what do you mean by a Nazi? Like, do you mean somebody who doesn't like illegal immigration? Like, it's just all of these words and like all of this language. Like, you don't really believe this. Like, you're not actually willing to. This is the other issue that a lot of people have, is that they shouldn't be given a space to exist. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to like go and kick them out? Are you going to like beat them up? Of course you're not. You're just going to hope somebody else does it. It's obnoxious. It's so obnoxious.
And I see like this stuff coming up, and it's like these battle lines are starting to get drawn in real life. It's not just like brain rot on the internet anymore. It's affecting opportunities. I have people that won't work with me as a YouTuber or a streamer because of opinions that I have about Dragon Age the Veilguard. You know, because of a tweet I liked. About some bullshit with The Last of Us Part 2 or something. And I have people that genuinely are just like, it happens every time I put out a video.
Well, this is the problem with a lot of content creators, is that a lot of content creators are really afraid of getting canceled or losing their audience. So what they end up doing is they end up pretending to be a person that they're not in order to hopefully not lose that audience of people. That's what happens a lot. And so that's why you see like streamers that don't ban abusive people in chat. It's because they're worried about losing the viewer. And so like basically these people care more about like their public image, and like this is your job, right? If it's your job, you should do whatever you think is best for your career. But at the same time, like if you do that and you continue being like a version of yourself that doesn't really exist, I think that you do run into a lot of problems. It's self-censorship. Yeah, exactly.
On Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I'm sorry for like being so like emotional or whatever about this.
It's weird.
I've been feeling this way for a long time, and I've wanted
and I even had, so like my opinions on Dragon Age the Veilguard, like the game, as I said, I enjoyed it more than I expected that I would, and I intend to continue playing the game off stream. I don't think it's a great game. I think it's like a 6 out of 10. But I think that a lot of people expected me to completely shit on it like I did with Star Wars Outlaws, and I just didn't do that. And it actually got a lot of people angry at me. And they were mad that like they were like, oh, Asmon's gone woke now. Like he doesn't want to offend woke people because he's not, you know, shitting on this game as much as we think he should. I read a lot of comments like that about me. Now, obviously, like everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I don't delete any of those comments. Like if you want to post something like that, go ahead. But I don't really give a shit. But at the same time, it's kind of weird and annoying to read, for sure.
About it for a long time, and I
so
don't have a
that's
script,
just how it is.
So if I bounce all over the place, I'm sorry, but I'm just so frustrated that we can't just talk about our video games. Every time I put out a video on Dragon Age the Veilguard, I have to deal with this. You know, I'm either not mean enough to the game or I'm not nice enough to the game. It's like...
Yeah, it's a culture war. It has nothing to do with the game at all. They don't care. Like, nobody cares about the game. People don't care about, like, is this game good or not? That has nothing to do with it. It's like, does this game cause me to gain ground or lose ground culturally? That's the only focus.
It's like the Super Bowl. It's like sports. It's like a competition, and it's two teams. Pick your side. Are you red or are you blue? Put your jersey on, and then you go to war, and all the new...
I really like the fact that, like, this guy, I mean, so this dude only has 500 subscribers. So the odds are, like, this is just your typical everyday guy who just makes YouTube videos for fun, right? It's not like this probably isn't like his career or anything like that. Might not be able to make enough money to do that. And he just does this for fun. And I'm so glad to hear this, because this is, I think, what an average Joe thinks. This is the way an average person looks at it. Yeah, he's so spot on. Yeah. And I think that what's good about it is that it's so authentic.
And all of like the real conversation that could lead to some sort of resolution gets thrown out the window. And then anybody who tries to bring the gray back into the spectrum of the conversation gets called a cuck or gets called a fence sitter or whatever. It's just never...
I wonder who that's happened to. Who could that have ever possibly happened to?
Morning.
Never enough. You're either never left enough or you're never right enough, you know? If I say something negative about Dragon Age the Veilguard, even if I'm criticizing a game mechanic, somehow I'm like an alt-right grifter that hates...
As I've said before, we are in the midst of a profound mental health crisis in America. You might not realize it, but hopefully after enough of these videos and after enough time on social media, you'll realize that it's worse than you could ever imagine. It's bad.
LGBT, whatever.
Yeah.
And then if I praise the game, if I say I see some stuff I really like, maybe it could be good. Like maybe it could overcome some of the things I don't like. Maybe I could end up liking this game. Well, then all of a sudden I'm part of the
woke.
problem. And I'm supporting the toxic activism in the community that's subverting the quality of the product that we're paying money for.
And I think that like really the focus about this is that if you take this a step back and you think about what is he really complaining about, he's complaining about the same thing that I've talked about how people are no longer encouraged and they're actually in fact actively discouraged to critically think about situations. Because if you critically think about situations, you end up in the middle of the road in a lot of cases. Or you don't have the same viewpoint that like whatever dogmatic group that you are a part of generally wants you to have. And so what happens is that somebody like this, he tries to critically think about the game and come to his own conclusions. And then his own conclusions are not sufficient for people that are radicalized. And because people that are radicalized are so loud, they basically dominate discourse. And what ends up happening is that every time that somebody wants to do that and they come up with their own opinion and then they get hate for it, do you know what that does? That tells them, stop thinking for yourself. And that is the fundamental problem that I think is pervasive through gaming. I think it's pervasive through all social issues. It's pervasive through politics. It's pervasive through science. It's pervasive through everything. And that has been the actual core problem. It's that people don't want to live with their mind in a cage. And modern social media and like just modern discourse requires you to have your mind in a cage.
It's just, I just feel like when I know that I'm not grifting and I know that I am only making this video or doing this reaction or talking about...
Most of the people that grift is one of the words that if I ever see this word, I assume that the person who's making the post is a retard. What does grifting mean? How is somebody a grifter? How do you define that they're a grifter? It's become one of those words that's used on people that are saying things that you disagree with. That's it. It's the new word for basically Lion Ted. It's the new buzzword.
Dragon Age because I genuinely care about it, and all I want to do is just have a discussion about it, the good, the bad, the things I like, the things I don't like, and then have conversations. That's what I miss about YouTube, man. Maybe I'm wrong, you know, because I wasn't really heavy on YouTube until about like 8 years ago, but I feel like there was a time when somebody would post a video and it would like provoke conversation. And then when you would go into the comments, you would see people having conversations about the topic and it would be interesting to read. And now
I think that it's gone down and it's gotten worse, but the truth is that this has always been a problem on the internet, and now I think there's more of a microscope being put on it, but it's been an issue for quite a while.
Fucking gone. We're losing it. And I feel like that was a really important part of YouTube, and I feel like we're fucking losing it. When I see Luke Stevens or Asmongold or anybody post a video about, you know, a video game, anything, the least controversial topic, it doesn't matter. You go down there and it's just the comments are just bots, and then like just the most toxic. It's Twitter now. The YouTube comments are looking more and more like Twitter. It's OnlyFans promotion and bots, and then just the most toxic, brain-dead fucking people, and then the worst opinions a lot of the time, not all the time. Maybe
Well, think about it like this. Which opinion is the most accessible? It's the dumbest opinion, right? Because that's the one that most people can understand. So what happens is that the dumbest opinions are the ones that get pushed the most, because those are the opinions that everybody can understand. Lowest common denominator.
Really focusing on the negative, but a lot of the time it's like the most brain dead ass comments get liked or upvoted or whatever the most, and it just makes me feel fucking insane. Now that's probably because normal people, they don't really comment that much on YouTube videos. They might
most of the people that are commenting on YouTube videos, actually I think YouTube comments can be okay, but some of them definitely, like especially like these serial commenters that are like writing big long posts, like these are people who have gone hollow. These are the lost souls in the undead asylum at the beginning of Dark Souls 1.
They might give it a like or a dislike, they move on, and then as a creator, I get the analytics, I see the retention, and then I can get an idea of what like actual people think. But I don't know, man. I'm frustrated with how hard it is to just have simple conversations. Like everything is so controversial, even if it's not. Even if it's objectively not controversial, you know, like if you have a character, like I think there's a line in the new Dragon Age the Veilguard where the Kunari character is saying like, you know what, I don't want to be called she anymore, I'm a they now or whatever. And it's just, it feels so fucking out of place. Now I haven't played the game yet. I played the game. It's out of place.
It's just somebody on the writing team that is basically, they wish they could say this to their dad, but they're not on speaking terms with their dad, so they decided to write it into their video game instead.
Planning to play the game. I want to see how good or bad it really is. After covering it, I feel like I got to get my hands on it and I got to make up my own mind. That's what I want. Now, I've shared my impressions. I'm not holding back or pulling punches with how I feel about what I'm seeing, but I am willing to play the game and then really know. You know what I'm saying?
I saw this on Twitter that people were criticizing me for playing the game after criticizing the game. And I thought that was really interesting because, so at this point, I'm wrong for not liking the game, and I'm also wrong for trying to inform myself about the game. So the only way that I can be right is if I agree with you. Okay. so
but when I
stupid.
see lines of dialogue, and I'm sure you've seen if you follow Dragon Age Veilguard, I'm sure, because there's been like a million fucking videos on it in the past 24 hours. I'm sure you've seen the clip I'm talking about. And I'm looking at it as a fan of the franchise and as a gamer, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, this fucking does not belong. Like,
weird.
what is this writing? This is like some weird self-insert shit.
Yeah, it is.
To me, that's what it looks like. I could be wrong, not having the full context. I'm gonna try and go and get it if I can get.
I think that if you look at, for example, like we just looked at earlier, there was like that golem that was in like one of the earlier Dragon Age games. That golem sounds like a dude and is effectively asexual. So I actually think that if you look at RPGs and fantasy novels and fantasy writing, that it's actually incorporated a lot of like kind of interesting and like fringe social issues in ways that are respectful. But do you want to know why I think that people don't know that like that happens? It's because their media literacy is so low and their capacity for critical thought is so low that the only way that they can perceive a person who has like a non-conforming like sexuality is if it's immediately spelled out for them and it's defined in plain text because they can't understand metaphors and nuance. Because if you look back and like you look at a lot of old like fantasy shows and fantasy stuff, there's tons of things like that, but it's told in a way that's not patronizing and repeated 3 times. Yeah.
Through the game, I'm gonna go get it. But just where I'm sitting right now, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this shit does not belong in the game. Why is it here? Like what? Like the reason why. And then, of course, when I point that out, I'm a bigot.
Well, and this is one thing that I think is also like really kind of weird, is that I've always thought that gaming is actually one of the most multicultural, like racial groups of people ever. Like if you want to see a really, really diverse group of people, go to your local Smash tournament. Go over there. Like you want to see a really diverse group of people, go to your local Street Fighter 6 tournament. You're gonna see all kinds of people. Go to your next speedrunning tournament. They act like it's not. So like this entire premise that like gaming is a hotbed for like extremism or bigotry or whatever, it's not really true, and it's never been true. Yeah, there's gonna be bad actors everywhere, of course. But if you look at it at a macro level, I actually think that gaming has been probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest way that people are de-radicalized. And what I mean by that is that, we always see people that are radicalized on the internet, and you see people that are gamers on the internet like that, sure. But what you don't see are guys that join a Call of Duty clan with a black guy, and they're raised in the South, and their parents are racist, and then they meet this guy and they're friends, and then this person's no longer a racist. That happens 100 times more often than somebody like being an actual racist on the internet and like learning to be racist from like Call of Duty. And it's again about the optics of an argument. It's about what sounds good, because it doesn't sound good to say that a lot of the people that are saying slurs on the internet aren't actually racist. They're just doing it for shock value. But the truth is that that's actually the reason why they're doing it. These people are in a lot of times not racist. They don't actually care about like homophobia or anything like that. They're just calling you the homophobic F word because that's the word that they use for each other, right? But like they probably have friends that are gay. Maybe they're gay themselves. One of my raid leader's favorite words to use was the homophobic F word. He married a dude. So I think that what happens is that the fixation on optics and the fixation on virtue signaling has created a very, very dark reflection of what gaming actually is. And if you want to see what gaming actually is,